The laboratory hummed with a low, mechanical pulse, a sound that the alien scientists called the heartbeat of knowledge, though it resembled more the murmur of a sleeping giant. Inside, Dr. Zelther adjusted his multi-lensed oculars, peering down at the specimen encased in a containment sphere. The object inside, the so-called human, had been preserved in a state of suspended animation, a temporary pause that allowed Dr. Zelther to conduct what his species considered a routine dissection of genetic material. He had dissected thousands of organisms before: plants, beasts, even other sentient species. Yet there was something about this human that immediately set his antennae on edge. "You will find this trivial," Zelther said to his assistant, a smaller, jittery creature named Vraloan, whose nervous energy seemed to amplify whenever humans were involved. "The Council expects a report within one rotation. This is merely a matter of classification and observation. No speculation." Vraloan twitched his appendages and shuffled through data pads, his voice squeaking. "Yes, Dr. Zelther, but the humans, they are unpredictable. Some reports suggest they can adapt to any environment, any threat. Their evolutionary history is unusual." Zelther snorted, a sound that resembled metal scraping against metal. "Unusual, yes. That is why we are here. To quantify. To analyze. To categorize. That is all." The containment sphere hissed as Zelther's claws delicately extracted a strand of DNA, stretching it across the hollow analyzer. Colors rippled across the screen, each representing a sequence, a code, a potential for something unimaginable. Zelther's 3 eyes blinked independently, scanning, processing, calculating. Everything in his training told him he should find patterns, anomalies, but nothing so extreme as what he now observed. The DNA sequence was not simply complex, it was adaptive on a level that defied probability. Sections of the genome seemed to rewrite themselves spontaneously. Mutations appeared preemptively, almost as if the organism anticipated challenges it had never faced. Zelther tilted his head, the motion causing the small lenses along his neck to rotate, scanning for errors. There were none. Vraloan leaned closer, antennae quivering. "Dr. Zelther, are you certain? Perhaps the analyzer is malfunctioning?" Zelther's mandibles clicked sharply, a noise that in his species signified alarm. "No, Vraloan. This is no malfunction. This is intentional design. These humans, they are engineered for survival beyond all logic. Even their weakest specimens carry redundancies that could outperform our most resilient constructs." Vraloan froze, a tiny bead of luminescent fluid forming along his cranial ridge. "But they are fragile to our perception. Soft tissue, minimal armor, negligible natural weapons." "Exactly," Zelther snapped. "And yet their genetic code contains hidden reserves, mechanisms that trigger under stress, conditions, or threat. They are not merely surviving, they are preemptively outmaneuvering evolution itself. It is maddening." The sound of the lab's doors sliding open echoed down the corridor. Another team of researchers arrived, chattering in their high-pitched language, oblivious to the human understudy. Zelther waved them away with an irritated flick of his claw. "Not now. You see nothing. You understand nothing." Vraloan's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. "Dr. Zelther, what if the Council sees this and realizes the potential?" Zelther's eyes narrowed. "Potential? These humans are dangerous, Vraloan. They are subtle, cunning, and unpredictably resilient. If we miscalculate, they will not just survive, they will thrive where we would fail. Remember the reports of their colonies surviving hostile conditions? Of their improvisation against predators and environmental collapse? Their technology is crude by our standards, but it amplifies their biological capabilities." Vraloan's mind raced. "Do you mean they could become a galactic threat?" "I mean," Zelther hissed, "that they are a species designed to survive every conceivable threat, and perhaps even create threats we cannot anticipate. Their DNA is a map not just of survival, but of supremacy." The assistant gulped, tiny hands clamping his data pads so hard they squeaked. "But we're scientists. We only study, document. Not engage. not interfere. Zelther's 3 eyes glinted with a strange intensity. Observation is interference if you understand what you are looking at. If we present this to the Council without full comprehension, it could spark panic, or worse, it could spark a preemptive strike. And then, Vralwyn, we will find ourselves unprepared for the very creatures we've underestimated for millennia. The lab lights flickered as if in agreement, and the human specimen stirred slightly. It was a subtle movement, almost imperceptible. A finger twitched, an eyelid flickered. Vralwyn jumped back, spilling several pads onto the metallic floor. Zelther leaned forward, antennae quivering in cautious anticipation. "They are awake," he murmured. "And aware somehow. It is as if they know we are watching." Vralwyn's voice rose in alarm. "Dr. Zelther, what do we do? The protocols, the containment, they are fragile, yes, but they are not designed for conscious interaction. What if—" Zelther slammed a claw down on the nearest console. "We proceed. Observation is mandatory. Study first. Panic later. And yet—" He paused, his mind spinning through possibilities, probabilities, and catastrophic scenarios. "I may have underestimated them. Or perhaps we have all underestimated them." A sudden alert flashed across the hollow screen. The human's DNA sample began to actively respond to the environment of the analyzer, unlike any organism previously recorded. Sequences rearranged themselves faster than the system could process, generating new proteins, activating dormant capabilities. Zelther's chest cavity tightened with a sensation his species called dread. This is impossible," he whispered. "Their DNA is not static. It is anticipatory. It anticipates conditions, threats, and manipulates outcomes. They are a species that evolves in real time." Real time. Vralwyn's mandibles clicked nervously. "But Dr. Zelther, how can a species do that? Even our most advanced synthetic organisms cannot react so swiftly. Not in a single lifetime. Not in a single generation. They are not synthetic," Zelther said through clenched mandibles. "They are a natural paradox. Every weakness is a mask for strength. Every vulnerability a reservoir of latent capabilities. This is why our surveys have always found them insignificant, yet resilient. Why colonies survived when annihilation was certain. Why reports of human ingenuity and adaptability defy all statistical probability." The human stirred again, this time more deliberately. Its eyes, bright and sharp, scanned the laboratory, taking in the various alien instruments, the floating holographic displays, and the 2 anxious scientists. It tilted its head slightly, as if acknowledging Zelther and Vralwyn, and then, to the alien's astonishment, it spoke in a voice that carried both curiosity and calm authority. "Hello?" The sound was not loud, not threatening, but it reverberated with a resonance that seemed to bypass their sensory filters, embedding itself directly into their cognitive processing. Both aliens froze, antennae erect, limbs rigid. Zelther's eyes widened. It speaks. It is not only alive, it is aware. And communicating." Vralwyn's appendages quivered uncontrollably. "Dr. Zelther, what do we do? We cannot understand the implications. Our protocols do not account for this level of sentience combined with biological superiority." Zelther slowly exhaled, a metallic hiss escaping from his thoracic vents. He had studied humans extensively, through reports, surveys, and intercepted transmissions. He had catalogued their behavior, their history, their colonies. But nothing in all of his accumulated knowledge had prepared him for the visceral realization: they were underestimated. Entirely. The human stood, moving with an elegance and control that suggested coordination far beyond what Zelther anticipated. Its eyes tracked every motion, every instrument, every data readout. It stepped closer to the containment sphere and placed a hand on its surface, and immediately the DNA sample began responding even more actively, rearranging itself in patterns that almost mimicked thought. "They are influencing their own DNA," Zelther breathed. "Actively. Deliberately. They are not just adapting, they are orchestrating their adaptation." Vralwyn's voice cracked. Dr. Zelther, if this is true, then. Yes, Zelther said, his voice low and tremulous. Then we have been blind. We have treated them as a minor variable in galactic equations, when in reality they are a wild card, a species that could surpass all expectations. If we failed to understand them fully, the Council could make a catastrophic mistake. The human turned its head slightly, meeting Zelther's gaze. In that instant, a thought seemed to bridge the gap between species, unspoken yet undeniable. They were aware of being studied, aware of being underestimated, and capable of far more than any simulation or prediction could calculate. Zelther staggered back, the weight of comprehension settling on him like an immense gravitational field. We may have just discovered the most dangerous intelligence in the galaxy. Not because they are violent, but because we do not yet comprehend them. And comprehension may be impossible. Vralin took a cautious step back, his exoskeleton rattling. Dr. Zelther, should we report this? Zelther's 3 eyes glinted with both awe and dread. Report? We cannot. Not yet. The Council is not prepared. If they learn, the panic will be uncontrollable. No, we must understand them first. Every nuance. Every capability. Every hidden mechanism. Only then, perhaps only then, can we decide how to proceed. The human smiled faintly, a simple curve of lips, almost playful, almost knowing. Zelther realized then that the human was aware of their calculations, of their fears, and perhaps of the very realization that had just taken root in his mind. They were not just a species, they were an enigma wrapped in biology, logic-defying and terrifyingly efficient. Vralin shivered. Dr. Zelther. I think we are already too late. Zelther did not respond immediately. He continued to stare at the human, who now began interacting with the instruments around it with a casual familiarity, pressing panels, reading holographic displays, adjusting data streams. It was learning, adapting, and mastering the environment of the lab in minutes, hours, maybe, in their perception of time. And in that moment, the seed of panic planted itself fully in Zelther's mind. These humans were not merely resilient. They were designed to defy expectation, to survive, and to manipulate their biology and their environment with a sophistication that no alien race, not even the Council, had ever witnessed. The lab lights flickered again, as if responding to the presence of a force that bent probability itself. Zelther's appendages trembled. We may have stumbled upon a species that cannot be contained, cannot be predicted, and perhaps cannot be challenged. Vralin whispered, voice almost inaudible over the hum of the laboratory. And yet, they seem so small. So fragile. Zelther's mandibles clicked. Fragile, yes. But lethal, in ways we are only beginning to understand. We have underestimated them for centuries, and it may cost us everything. The human turned to them once more, a subtle tilt of the head, eyes glimmering with intelligence and something else, curiosity, mischief, perhaps even a warning. It spoke again, simple words, but with an authority that left no room for misunderstanding. Hello? I think we need to talk. And in that moment, Zelther realized the true extent of the challenge ahead. It was not just understanding this species. It was surviving the consequences of having underestimated them. The hum of the laboratory seemed to deepen, vibrating in resonance with the DNA, with the presence of this extraordinary human, and with the dawning realization that everything Zelther thought he knew about life, intelligence, and survival had just been upended. The laboratory had transformed from a place of calculated observation into a theater of uncertainty. Dr. Zelther's 3 eyes scanned the room frantically, tracking every subtle movement the human made. The organism, now fully conscious and responsive, navigated the alien instruments with an unsettling ease. It tilted its head at data panels, touched holographic projections, and seemed to anticipate every reading, every spike in the system, before the sensors could even register them. Vralin's appendages trembled as he whispered, Dr. Zelther, I am not sure our containment protocols are sufficient. It seems to understand the lab itself. Not just the tools, but the environment. Every sensor, every mechanism. Zelther's thoracic vents hissed sharply. It is learning. Real-time adaptation. Not just observation, real comprehension. This is beyond any recorded intelligence we've catalogued. The human stepped closer to a containment unit holding a sample of another alien species, a small, amphibious creature. Its fingers hovered over the controls and then, with a deftness that made both aliens recoil, it adjusted the energy fields, not enough to harm, but enough to cause the sensors to spike erratically. The amphibian stirred, confused, but unharmed. Zelther's antennae bristled. Notice, Zelther said, voice tight with apprehension, how it manipulates the environment with minimal force. It is learning leverage. Efficiency. Control. Vroluin swallowed audibly. Dr. Zelther, do you think it is testing us? Zelther's mandibles clicked sharply. Of course it is testing us. Every movement, every hesitation, every pattern we follow, it is cataloging and exploiting. We are under observation as much as it is under ours. This is not merely survival, it is strategy. The human now approached the main console, a massive structure covered in blinking panels and holographic displays. It scanned the information, swiping through sequences, deciphering alien text and symbols at a speed that made Vroluin's circuits feel inadequate. Then, it began to interact with the DNA sample that had so terrified Zelther. Its fingers danced across the hollow interface, subtly influencing the analysis, generating simulations that showed not random mutations but optimized adaptations. Zelther staggered back, antennae quivering. It is not just observing itself. It is rewriting simulations, modeling outcomes, projecting biological evolution in real time. This is unprecedented. Vroluin's eyes widened. Dr. Zelther, this could alter the Council's understanding of life forms forever. If we report this without full analysis, it could trigger panic, or worse, military action. They will not comprehend the full scope. The human, sensing the tension, paused and turned its gaze toward the aliens. Its expression was calm, yet there was a spark of challenge in its eyes, as if daring them to act. Then it made a small, deliberate gesture, touching one of the DNA strands with a fingertip. Immediately, the analyzer's output began to shift, displaying sequences that were not merely reactive but predictive. Predictive adaptation, Zelther whispered, his voice barely audible over the lab's hum. It can anticipate threats before they exist, before they are even presented. This is not evolution. This is preemptive design. Vroluin stumbled backward, knocking over a small container. Dr. Zelther, what if it decides we are a threat? Zelther's mandibles tightened. Then we would be unprepared. Entirely unprepared. We cannot calculate the consequences. Every measure we have relied upon is insufficient. We must understand its capabilities fully before the Council is informed. The human, as if understanding the concern, moved toward the containment sphere, touching the surface with both hands. The DNA inside began to shimmer and reorganize in ways that no alien analysis had ever recorded. The sequences responded not just to environmental cues, but to the human's intent, as if the organism itself was capable of conscious modification. Vroluin's voice quavered. Dr. Zelther, it is controlling its own genetic expression. Actively. With thought. How is this possible? Zelther's antennae twitched violently. It is the ultimate survival mechanism. Every weakness contains latent potential. Every vulnerability is an opportunity. This human is not just a life form, it is a living paradox. And it knows it. Suddenly, the human's attention shifted. It scanned the room quickly, eyes landing on the storage units containing other alien specimens. In a fluid motion, it activated the containment protocols, not to release or harm, but to subtly adjust the energy fields and environmental conditions. The alien specimens stirred, but none were injured. Zelther's 3 eyes widened in disbelief. See? Zelther hissed. It is not destructive. It is experimental. Learning about us, learning about them, learning about itself. It is probing our assumptions, mapping the lab, and testing its environment for vulnerabilities and responses. Rowland shivered. Dr. Zelther, do you think it could influence other species biologically? Through touch or proximity? Zelther hesitated, mind racing through possibilities. Perhaps. Perhaps not intentionally. But the potential is there. The DNA is not passive. It adapts. It responds. It reorganizes. And it seems aware of our presence, aware of our intentions. This is beyond comprehension. The human now approached the main console again, pressing a sequence of controls that made the holographic DNA samples interact in unexpected ways. Sections of the genetic code seemed to fold and realign, generating patterns that were almost artistic in nature, yet functionally optimized. Rowland gasped audibly. Dr. Zelther, it is creating improvements? Enhancements? These sequences, they are better than natural selection would allow. Yes, Zelther said, voice tight with a mixture of awe and fear. It is designing itself. Real-time optimization of biological systems. It is a living, thinking, adaptive organism that surpasses even our most advanced synthetic models. And it is doing this voluntarily, without external input. Rowland's antennae drooped. Dr. Zelther, we are witnessing a species capable of rewriting its own evolution. In real time. This defies everything we know. Zelther's mandibles clicked sharply. It does. And that is why the Council cannot know yet. Not until we understand the full scope. We cannot risk panic, miscalculation, or preemptive aggression. We must document, observe, and adapt our approach, just as it adapts to us. The human glanced at them, a faint smile playing on its lips, and then turned back to the DNA sample. With deliberate precision, it made subtle adjustments to the sequence, creating multiple potential outcomes simultaneously. The analyzer struggled to keep up, projecting probabilities that Zelther had never seen. This is beyond mathematics, Zelther murmured. It is not random. It is optimization, prediction, and adaptation all at once. Every sequence anticipates environmental variables, biological stressors, and even potential threats. It is perfect in ways that are terrifying. Rowland shook. Dr. Zelther, what if it decides we are obstacles? What if it decides to evolve in response to us? Zelther's eyes narrowed. Then we would be unprepared. Entirely unprepared. This is why we must study every nuance, every reaction. We must predict its capabilities, even if they are beyond conventional understanding. This is not merely survival, it is strategy, adaptation, and intelligence converging in ways we cannot yet calculate. The human now moved to a separate workstation, scanning a database of alien life forms. Its hands moved quickly, touching panels, adjusting displays, and subtly manipulating environmental variables. Each action was calculated, precise, and purposeful. Rowland whispered, voice trembling. Dr. Zelther, it is learning everything about us, about our biology, our instruments, our protocols, faster than we can comprehend. Yes, Zelther replied, voice low and urgent. It is observing, analyzing, predicting. Every movement, every reaction, every hesitation, it is cataloging. And it will use that knowledge. That is what makes it dangerous. Not aggression, but intelligence and adaptability. The human paused, looking at them both. Then, in a voice calm but firm, it said, I understand you are studying me. But I am capable of understanding you too. We need a truce, at least until we figure out each other. Rowland's exoskeleton rattled violently. Dr. Zelther, did it just negotiate? Zelther's mandibles clicked in disbelief. It is not only aware, it is reasoning, predicting, and communicating strategically. This is not a threat in the traditional sense, it is a challenge to every assumption we have ever made. The human's eyes gleamed with an unmistakable awareness. I need cooperation. I can learn from you, but you must learn from me as well. Otherwise, mistakes happen. We both lose. Rowland staggered back, unable to comprehend fully. Dr. Zelther, it is reasoning like a counselor, but biologically, it could survive a cataclysm. It could outlast entire fleets. And yet, it negotiates? Zelther's antennae quivered with unease. It is demonstrating mastery over its biology, its environment, and now, our behavior. It is strategic. Calculating. And it is teaching us that every assumption we held is flawed. The lab was silent except for the soft hum of machinery. The human now focused on the DNA sample again, fingers dancing across the holographic interface, generating new sequences, new adaptations, new possibilities. It paused, looking back at the two aliens, and smiled faintly. You will have to learn fast, it said simply. I adapt. You may not. Zelther's 3 eyes narrowed, antennae stiff with tension. And that, he whispered to Vralin, is why we are already behind. Every second, every observation, it grows stronger, faster, smarter. And we are still calculating the basics. Vralin's voice trembled. Dr. Zelther, we have underestimated it for centuries. And now, we are seeing the consequences. The human's calm, measured presence radiated an unsettling certainty. It was no longer just a subject. It was a participant, an active agent in the laboratory, rewriting the rules of observation, biology, and interaction. And in that moment, Zelther realized the terrifying truth: containment was no longer sufficient. Understanding alone might not be enough. The human was not just alive, it was evolving, calculating, and adapting faster than any alien could anticipate. And if they did not respond creatively, decisively, and with extreme caution, they would be outmaneuvered at every turn. The hum of the laboratory deepened, DNA strands shimmered, and the human continued its quiet, relentless study of its environment, each movement a silent demonstration of the unparalleled adaptability and ingenuity that had terrified Zelther from the very moment the sample was first analyzed. The laboratory had become a battlefield of intellect, strategy, and raw biological ingenuity. Dr. Zelther paced in a tight circle, his 3 eyes scanning the human with a mixture of awe and growing dread. Every second the human spent in the lab, every interaction with instruments and DNA strands, amplified the realization that traditional protocols were useless. This was no ordinary subject. It was an evolving threat and a teacher simultaneously. Vralin hovered nervously near a data console, trembling as the human approached with deliberate precision. Dr. Zelther, I don't think we can contain it anymore. It is influencing the environment, anticipating our moves, learning our strategies faster than we can respond. Our instruments, our entire lab, are essentially compromised. Zelther's mandibles clicked sharply, an alien expression of frustration and fear. Compromised? Yes. And yet we must proceed. Observation, documentation, understanding, that is our duty. But now it is testing our limits, probing for weaknesses, forcing us to confront capabilities we never imagined. Every calculation we make, it already anticipates. The human paused, tilting its head at the array of alien sensors and hollow interfaces. Its fingers traced the edges of a containment field, not to break it, but to subtly manipulate the energy flow. The DNA sample shimmered, rearranging itself in patterns that were almost predictive in nature. Zelther's antennae quivered violently. It is rewriting its own biology while interacting with our instruments, he muttered. It is controlling the environment, controlling the DNA and… He stopped as the human's eyes locked with his. There was a calm intensity in that gaze, a clear message: I understand you, and I am capable of outmaneuvering you. Vralin's tiny hands hovered over his console. Dr. Zelther, what if it decides that our presence is a threat? It is already adapting to every measure we've taken. What if it escalates? Before Zelther could respond, the human spoke, calm and deliberate. I will not harm you. But I will defend myself. And if you attempt containment or aggression, you will only force me to adapt faster than you can calculate. Zelther exhaled sharply through his thoracic vents. It is reasoning. It is calculating. And yet, there is a threat in that reasoning. Its intelligence is tied directly to its biology. Every challenge we pose makes it stronger, faster, more precise. This is terrifying. The human moved to the DNA analyzer, touching the surface lightly. Immediately, the strands shimmered and reconfigured themselves, generating multiple adaptive possibilities simultaneously. Each sequence was optimized to anticipate environmental stressors, potential predatory threats, and even indirect effects from alien interference. Vralin stammered. Dr. Zelther, it's predicting everything we do. Every intervention, every observation, it's modeling us as variables in its evolution. Yes, Zelther admitted, voice tight with tension. It is not merely adapting, it is strategizing. Its survival is not reactive. It is anticipatory. Every sequence, every adjustment, it is a preemptive response to every potential threat. And it is beautiful in its efficiency. The human then approached a secondary console containing data on past alien species. Its fingers hovered over the holographic interface, and suddenly, the DNA strands in the analyzer began aligning in a way that reflected not only its own genome but simulated interactions with other species. Proteins folded, unfolded, and recombined in ways that suggested self-optimization for interspecies survival, combat, and communication. Vralwin's antennae drooped. Dr. Zelther, it is designing itself not just biologically but socially, technologically, strategically. Every adaptation considers multiple layers of interaction. Zelther paced back and forth, antennae bristling. It is predicting not just physical threats but political and strategic consequences. Its genome is a multidimensional blueprint of survival, intelligence, and interaction. No species in the galaxy has ever demonstrated this level of adaptive foresight. The human turned toward them, calm and unwavering. You will have to think creatively. You cannot rely on brute force, protocol, or prediction alone. I adapt faster than you anticipate. Every action you take will be countered before you even complete it. Vralwin's circuits whined audibly. Dr. Zelther, are we even capable of countering this? Our technology, our protocols, our calculations, they are irrelevant. Zelther clenched his mandibles, trying to suppress the rising panic. We cannot brute force it. We must rely on creativity, unpredictability, and improvisation. If we think too linearly, too statistically, we will fail. Completely. The human now focused on the containment field again, pressing subtle commands that caused minor fluctuations. Zelther and Vralwin noticed immediately. The human was probing weaknesses in the containment system, but not to escape, yet. Every movement, every manipulation was a test, a mapping of the lab's limits and vulnerabilities. This is deliberate, Zelther said sharply. It is exploring its environment, understanding the lab's design, calculating what is safe, what is fragile, and how to exploit each variable if necessary. Vralwin's voice trembled. Dr. Zelther, it could neutralize our containment protocols instantly if it chose. We are unarmed, unprepared, and at its mercy. Yes, Zelther admitted, antennae stiff with dread. Which means we have one option: we must anticipate its creativity. We must think like it thinks, improvise like it improvises, and act with a flexibility that even it cannot fully predict. The human paused and glanced at them, a faint smirk crossing its features. You're slow, it said simply. But you're learning. Zelther felt a chill ripple through his thoracic cavity. The human was aware of their attempts to strategize, aware of their limitations, and capable of adapting to them in real time. Every hesitation, every miscalculation, every instinctual response had been catalogued and analyzed. Vralwin shivered. Dr. Zelther, it's almost enjoying this. The testing, the observation, it's almost playful, but deadly. Yes, Zelther said, voice tight. And that is the danger. It is not simply surviving, it is mastering the environment, mastering interaction, mastering us. Every test, every probe, it increases its advantage. And it knows it. The human then moved to a storage bay containing advanced alien tools and devices. Its fingers danced over the controls, analyzing the tools with rapid comprehension. Within minutes, it had combined several mechanisms in ways Zelther could barely understand, creating a makeshift device that amplified environmental responses to subtle stimuli. It is improvising technology, Zelther muttered, antennae bristling. Not just adapting biologically, but mechanically. It integrates physical, chemical, and technological variables simultaneously. This is beyond any species we have catalogued. Vrahlin's voice was almost inaudible. Dr. Zelther, it's not just a threat, it's a paradigm shift. It redefines everything we know about life, intelligence, and survival. Zelther exhaled, thoracic vents hissing sharply. We are facing not merely an organism, but a living system capable of optimizing itself across multiple dimensions: biological, environmental, technological, and social. Every move we make, every reaction we have, it anticipates, adapts, and counters. The human now paused, standing amidst the instruments it had manipulated. Its gaze swept the room, assessing, calculating, and perhaps judging. Then it spoke, calm and unwavering. You cannot control me. You cannot contain me. The only option is to cooperate, to learn, to adapt together. Otherwise, you will force me to act in ways that may surprise you. Vrahlin's exoskeleton rattled violently. Dr. Zelther, it is issuing a warning. But it is also offering cooperation. How do we respond? Zelther's mandibles clicked in thought. We must accept it, but carefully. We must observe, interact, and challenge ourselves to think as it does, creatively, adaptively, unpredictably. Only then can we hope to maintain control, or at least coexist without catastrophe. The human's presence radiated confidence and intelligence. It moved again to the DNA analyzer, subtly reconfiguring sequences, testing environmental variables, and observing responses from the aliens themselves. Every action was deliberate, calculated, and precise. Vrahlin whispered, Dr. Zelther, it is teaching us. Not just about its biology, but about strategy, adaptation, and thinking beyond conventional logic. Yes, Zelther admitted, antennae quivering. And that is the crux of it. We are being forced to evolve intellectually, socially, and operationally in response to a single human. Every assumption we held about superiority, intelligence, and survival is being challenged simultaneously. The human then paused, turning to them with an almost serene expression. This is not a threat. But it could be. Your choice determines the outcome. Adapt, or be outpaced. Learn or fail. The clock is already moving. Zelther's chest cavity constricted as he realized the magnitude of the situation. This was no simple experiment. This was a confrontation of intellect, adaptability, and survival on multiple planes simultaneously. And the human was not merely a participant, it was the orchestrator, the catalyst, the unpredictable force that rendered every calculated strategy insufficient. Vrahlin's voice trembled. Dr. Zelther, we are witnessing the birth of a species that will redefine the galaxy. And we are part of its lesson. Zelther's antennae bristled, his 3 eyes locked on the human. And if we fail to learn, adapt, and respond creatively, we will not merely fail the Council. We will fail ourselves. And perhaps, in ways we cannot yet predict, the galaxy. The human's calm gaze held them in place, a silent testament to its unparalleled adaptability and intelligence. It was a living paradox, seemingly fragile, yet supremely capable, reactive, yet anticipatory, small, yet profoundly consequential. And in that moment, Zelther realized the stark truth: this was no longer an experiment. It was a confrontation. The human was not just surviving, it was mastering, teaching, and challenging. And the outcome would depend entirely on the alien's ability to think beyond convention, to improvise, and to embrace creativity in a way they had never done before. The hum of the laboratory deepened, DNA strands shimmered in anticipation, and the human continued its deliberate, unstoppable interaction with the environment. Every gesture, every touch, every glance was a lesson, a warning, and a test. For the first time, Zelther understood the true magnitude of underestimating humanity. And for the first time, he knew that survival would demand more than knowledge. It would demand ingenuity, courage, and a willingness to embrace unpredictability in the face of a force far greater than he had ever imagined. The laboratory had become a tense arena, charged with energy that seemed to pulse in time with the DNA sequences themselves. Dr. Zelther and Vralin stood frozen for a moment, processing the human's calm ultimatum: cooperate or risk escalation. The human, still standing amidst the holographic arrays and shimmering genetic strands, radiated an almost effortless authority, proof that raw power was not always measured in strength, but in intelligence and adaptability. Zelther's thoracic vents hissed in agitation. We must act creatively. We cannot rely on brute force, containment protocols, or prediction alone. The human is forcing us to think differently, faster, more imaginatively. And if we fail, the consequences are catastrophic. Vraluin's antennae twitched nervously. But Dr. Zelther, what form of action is sufficient? It adapts faster than we can compute. Every attempt to control it backfires. Every intervention, it integrates into its own evolution. The human, noticing their hesitance, approached deliberately. You're trying to outthink me the wrong way. You can't predict what I'll do using linear reasoning, statistics, or reactionary measures. Adaptation is a conversation, not a confrontation. Cooperation is the fastest way forward. Resistance is a costly gain for both of us. Zelther paused, realizing the profound simplicity hidden within that statement. The human's approach was not aggressive. It was relational, an invitation to collaboration, not a demand for submission. Slowly, he began to see the path forward. To survive and even benefit, they needed to think as the human thought, fluidly, creatively, and unconventionally. Vralin looked doubtful, trembling. But cooperation, with a species that can rewrite itself biologically in real time? With intelligence that surpasses our best synthetic models? Yes, Zelther said, voice firming with resolve. Especially with a species that surpasses our models. We adapt by learning, by observing, by following the principles it embodies. We must not dominate. We must understand, integrate, and respond with ingenuity. The human's eyes gleamed with approval at the shift in tone. Finally, it said, you're thinking the right way. Now, let's solve this together. The first step was immediate. The DNA sequences were reorganizing rapidly, and the human guided the aliens in a series of maneuvers that challenged their preconceived notions. Zelther tentatively followed instructions, touching controls in ways that initially seemed counterintuitive, pushing panels that should not have had effects, adjusting energy fields to facilitate environmental harmony rather than containment. Vraluin's antennae quivered but gradually stabilized. It works. The DNA is stabilizing, but in a form far more robust than any single species analysis could produce. It's cooperative enhancement. Yes, the human confirmed. Evolution isn't just about competition. Sometimes it's about collaboration, when done intelligently, creatively, and with awareness of every variable. You are learning this now, whether you intended to or not. The aliens worked alongside the human, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. The analyzer displayed sequences that shimmered in colors beyond the visible spectrum, patterns folding and recombining to anticipate environmental stresses and maximize adaptability. Zelther's calculations, once linear and rigid, now bent in strange, elegant curves as he began to incorporate the human's intuitive strategies. It was a strange dance, alien precision paired with human improvisation. The lab hummed in symphony, machines responding to human-guided inputs and alien adjustments alike. For the first time, Zelther saw that intelligence and creativity could combine to produce results far exceeding the sum of their parts. Vraluin, now moving with deliberate care rather than panic, observed the sequence projections. Dr. Zelther, the human has integrated our environmental data, our instruments, and our biological knowledge into a single adaptive model. It's astonishing. Every weakness we thought we had is now either neutralized or transformed into an advantage. Zelther's 3 eyes glimmered with a mix of awe and relief. We've underestimated them for centuries. But now we are learning the real value of collaboration. Not domination. Not observation. Cooperation. The human nodded, gesturing toward the containment sphere. The DNA is now stable, optimized for any foreseeable condition. But stability is only half the story. I've created redundancy, flexibility, and potential for growth beyond what even you expected. It's ready to survive, thrive, and integrate into any ecosystem, or resist threats you haven't even imagined. Rowland let out a long, rattling sigh. It's beautiful. In a terrifying way. The sequences are no longer just reactive. They are anticipatory, resilient, and elegant. I've never seen biology handled with such creativity. The human smiled faintly, almost humbly. That's what humans do. We improvise. We adapt. We use what we have, even in situations where logic says it's impossible. And sometimes, the solution is simply thinking differently, trusting intuition, and taking calculated risks. Zelther leaned closer to the analyzer, scanning the sequences. His mandibles clicked in slow comprehension. It's a paradox. Fragile yet strong. Predictable yet chaotic. Small yet capable of reshaping entire ecosystems and, perhaps, civilizations. Every report we've filed on humans has only captured a fraction of this reality. Rowland's antennae twitched with excitement and newfound respect. Dr. Zelther, it's more than a subject. It's a teacher. A masterclass in survival, strategy, and adaptability. Yes, Zelther admitted, voice resonating with realization. And the lesson is clear. We have underestimated humanity for far too long. Not because they lack strength, but because we refuse to understand their ingenuity, their creativity, and their capacity for adaptive thinking. The human now stepped back, surveying the laboratory as if seeing the entire situation from above. You've done well, it said. You didn't resist in fear. You embraced creativity. You adapted. And now, we all benefit. The DNA is stronger, more resilient, and more versatile than it was before. And so are you. Rowland blinked in disbelief. We're better? From working with a human? Yes, the human replied, smiling faintly. Collaboration doesn't just benefit one party. It teaches, strengthens, and transforms everyone involved. You've learned more in these hours than you would have in centuries of isolated observation. Zelther exhaled through his thoracic vents, antennae relaxing for the first time since the ordeal began. It is remarkable. Not just the biological insights, but the intellectual and philosophical ones. Our assumptions, protocols, and rigid calculations were limiting us. But thinking differently, embracing unpredictability, that is the true path to survival and growth. The human nodded, then gestured toward the exit. I need to leave soon. My environment is prepared, my DNA stable, and the lessons are shared. But remember this, underestimation is dangerous. Collaboration is powerful. And adaptability will always give you the edge. Rowland, still trembling with exhilaration, whispered, Dr. Zelther, they're leaving us with a gift. Knowledge. Insight. Perspective. A chance to rethink everything. Zelther's 3 eyes glinted with quiet admiration. And the realization is humbling. Humanity is not merely another species to categorize. They are a force of ingenuity, creativity, and survival. To underestimate them is to invite catastrophe. To understand them is to gain unparalleled perspective. The human paused at the lab's exit, turning once more. Do not fear us. Respect us. And never forget that adaptability is more powerful than brute strength, and creativity more potent than raw calculation. With a subtle motion, the human activated a personal transport field, and in an instant, it vanished from the laboratory. The DNA samples shimmered briefly, then settled into a new configuration, stable, optimized, and resilient beyond expectation. The laboratory felt different, quieter yet charged with energy, as though the very air had absorbed the lessons imparted by the human's presence. Rowland exhaled, antennae twitching with awe. Dr. Zelther, we've survived. But more than that, we've evolved, in thought if not in body. Zelther's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Indeed. Survival is no longer just about power or numbers. It is about creativity, adaptability, and the ability to integrate the unexpected. Humanity has reminded us of this in ways we will never forget. For the first time in his career, Zelther felt a sense of gratitude toward a subject rather than the usual satisfaction of documentation. The human had tested, challenged, and taught them. The lab was no longer merely a center of observation, it had become a classroom, and humanity had been the teacher. Vralowin looked at Zelther with wide, luminescent eyes. "Do you think we'll see it again?" Zelther's antennae twitched in contemplation. "Perhaps. And when we do, I suspect we will be wiser, stronger, and more capable. Not because of our protocols or technology, but because we will remember the lesson: never underestimate creativity, adaptability, and the ingenuity of a species that thrives on both challenge and possibility." The lab lights hummed softly, the DNA sequences shimmering faintly like stars in a distant galaxy. Zelther stepped back, observing the stabilized, optimized human DNA. A subtle smile crossed his mandibles, a rare expression of recognition and respect. "We've survived," he whispered. "But we've also learned. And that may be the most valuable outcome of all." Vralowin nodded, antennae relaxed for the first time since the human's arrival. "Yes, Dr. Zelther. We've learned that resilience is not just in the body, it's in the mind. Not just in adaptation, but in creativity. Not just in survival, but in understanding the unexpected." Zelther's eyes swept the laboratory one final time, taking in the equipment, the shimmering DNA, and the echoes of the human's presence. "And the galaxy may never be the same. Humanity is a force we cannot ignore. We underestimated them,